Functional dependency in DBMS. This is Suganya, Department of Computer Technology, Vellalar College for Women. In database management system, functional dependency is a constraint that describes the relationship between attributes in a table. It occurs when a value of one attribute or a set of attributes uniquely determine the value of another attributes. The notation of the functional dependencies are x implies y. So as shown in this slide, x arrow mark y. This is x dependent on y. X is a determinant, the attribute set on the left that determines the value. Y or the dependent, the attribute on the right whose value is determined by x. In this slide, y is dependent on the x. Y is derived from the x value. So this is x implies, that is arrow mark y is the notation of the functional dependency. Types of functional dependencies. There are a number of types. Let me see one by one. Trivial FD. It's occur if the dependent y is a subset of the determinant x value. Example, student ID name. This is the x value. Name is the y. So name is dependent on the student ID and name. This is a trivial FD. Non-trivial functional dependency. It occurs if the dependent y is not a subset of the x value. Example, student ID implies name. So y, name is not dependent on the student ID. So this is a non-trivial functional dependency. Full functional dependency occurs when a non-key attribute is functionally dependent on the entire candidate key and not on any proper subset of it. So it is fully dependent on the x value. So no other non-key attribute values are not presented in that particular value. Next, partial dependency. It occurs when a non-key attribute depends on only a part of a composite primary key. The primary key can be a partial dependent on that particular value. Next is a transitive dependency. It occurs when an attribute depends on another indirectly through the third attribute. For example, A is dependent on B and B is dependent on C. So through this we can derive A dependent on C. So already B attribute is dependent on the A attribute. So now C is dependent on B. So we can derive the next transitive dependency value as A implies C. So automatically C is dependent on the A. Multi-value dependency, that is MVD in short form. It can occur when one attribute determines a set of values for the another attribute, that those values are independent of other attribute in the table. It is denoted as x double implies y. X implies y. Arrow mark, two arrow mark we have to use in the multi-valued dependency. So analyzing a valid and invalid cases in the functional dependency. So first, unique determinant to unique determinant. So unique determinant value can be determine the another unique dependent value. For example, roll number arrow mark student information. This determinant value is a valid because each row value, for example, roll number is a unique and maps it to a specific set of value. Roll number is a candidate key. It can be determinant the another set of value. So this is a valid. Another one is same determinant with same dependent. For example, department name implies department building. It is invalid even with duplicate department names, and as they always map to the same building. So in a particular building we name a department, so it's always a valid statement even though the duplication can be a while. Next, different determinant with same dependent. For example, IT implies B2, ME implies B2. This is a valid because multiple attributes can lead to the same department values. Next is same determinant with different dependents. For example, student name implies department name. Here, this is an invalid because student name leads to multiple duplicate values. There is a conflicting values, so this is an invalid statement. Next, the role of the functional dependency in the normalization concept. The process of organizing data to improve data integrity and minimizing the redundancy is called a normalization. The redundancy occur in the table, we have to reduce it. For this concept, we using the normalization. By directing the conversion of the relation into the normal form, functional dependency are essential to this process. For the normalization, the functional dependency is a most essential and important concept for reducing the dependency occur in a table. For that, we dividing the table into a number of table, and that we can remove the unwanted duplicated data and we have to combine it. The concept of normalization is based on the functional dependency, which using the functional dependency, we break the table in multiple tables that help us in preventing duplicate data and hence improves data quality, less errors and better database design. So thank you.